to go ahead and start with Mr. Jacobs. And I've asked them to keep their comments about 3 minutes, and then hopefully most of you will be able to stay for a few questions and answers afterward. So we need to keep it going.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. It's a real pleasure to be here this evening with you. And if there's one thing I'd like you to take from my comments tonight, it's that I'm a business guy. I've never run for elected office before, never held any office before, but very concerned about the direction of the country and very concerned that we need a different type of leader in Washington if we want to get things done. You know, I wanted to just summarize how I see the problems today in Washington through a parable that I learned back in Mr. Whitkey's Sunday school class many, many years ago, and I'm sure many of you in this group have heard it, but it was about the two men, the wise man who built his home on rock, and when the rains came, the house stood, and the foolish man who built his home on the beach, and when the rains came, the house was washed away. And what's happening today is our federal government has built its house on $17 trillion of debt, and we're building a healthcare system on government regulation and bureaucracy. And I'm running for the United States Senate because somebody needs to go to Washington and tell them that it is unacceptable to trade rock for sand. Now, I've had our choice here we're going to have in this election. We've got good people running. But I want to share with you a brief story. As I said, I was 12 years ago, I was brought into a company by the name of Reliant Energy. It was a company on the verge of financial collapse. I had the opportunity to be part of a senior leadership team to help get the company turned around. The one thing that's a little different about me from the other candidates in this race, I am the only candidate in this race that has had real-world experience dealing with and addressing and fixing a very large fiscal mess. So the question we have in front of us, how do we fix the problems we have in Washington? How do we get that foundation rebuilt onto rock? 3 quick things I want to mention. Number one, we need to get our fiscal house in order. We can start that by passing a balanced budget amendment because Congress has not shown the ability to do that on their own. But there's also lessons I learned in the private sector that I think are going to work. How about a 10% across the board cut to the administrative budget of every single federal agency? How about tackling fraudulent and wasteful spending in our federal government? How about tackling the $17 trillion of debt by the federal government selling mineral rights to oil and gas reserves that sit on federal land? Some estimates have that as high as $100 trillion of asset value. We can make a significant down payment on our federal debt today if we were to sell those mineral rights to the oil and gas reserves. Second point I want to touch on is Obamacare. No question, we need to repeal Obamacare. We need to start over. You all probably saw the Congressional Budget Office study that said that because of Obamacare, 2.5 million less people are going to be working. That's 27,000 Iowans. President Obama's tried to spin this, oh, this is a good thing. You're going to have more leisure time. I'm sorry, that's a bunch of malarkey. The core problem we have in America today, not enough people working and paying taxes. Third and final point is on the regulatory climate that we have here. Our federal government doesn't create jobs, but it does create an environment that makes growth in the private sector either easier or more difficult. And there's no question that the regulatory climate that we have today is strangling growth in our businesses and in the private sector. Here's one thing we can do. We need an independent cost-benefit analysis before any new federal regulation gets passed. It's what we do with new legislation with the Congressional Budget Office. We need to take that same concept for federal regulation. So on November 4th, we're going to tell, to keep with my analogy of rock and sand, we're going to tell Bruce Braley to go pound sand, and we're going to give him a permanent retirement on the beach. And I would humbly ask for your support in your vote on June 3rd and again on November 4th. I am the candidate that is best equipped to go toe-to-toe with trial lawyer-funded Bruce Braley. He is going to have a tremendous amount of resources. We have to have a candidate in this race who is able to muster the resources to go toe-to-toe with Congressman Braley. Thank you very much, and God bless you.